ATM, Carmelo, Belardo.
That's a great speech.
So confusing.
Welcome aboard.
There's always been last-minute introductions written. Today there happens to be a bunch of them. Introductions that people have written today, okay? As opposed to a pre-printed introduction that some of us write in large font so that the Toastmaster can actually read them. I've received introductions as a Toastmaster for speakers that look like this.
Yeah.
And I usually tell them to rewrite that. It's chicken scratch. It looks like a doctor's prescription pad. Santa Claus was coming. In the recent past, however, the introduction has become almost non-existent. Last couple of weeks, we've had people at the head table who are being introduced by the Toastmasters. Even the Toastmaster, who was introduced by the president at the beginning of the meeting, did not provide an introduction. And I'm sorry, but introductions, they can be crafted in such a way where they can be very entertaining and lead you into wherever you're going. It's way better, trust me, than I'd like to introduce our Toastmaster, Carson Schaefer. That's like a letdown.
DTM.
It's a letdown, okay? DTM, Carson Schaefer.
All right.
I'm gonna forget that. A good example of an introduction. Your introduction. Okay, this is how you write an introduction. Our next speaker is Toastmaster Blake Smith. Blake is doing the first project from Toastmasters Storytelling Manual, the Folktale. To give you a little background on his presentation, about 65 years ago, former divinity student and high school music teacher decided to take it on the road and try his luck as a folk humorist and entertainer. In the early 1950s, well before this music teacher was discovered and became the legendary sheriff of Mayberry, North Carolina, he wrote a story telling the tale of a country boy's very first experience well, you'll figure it out. So without further lollygagging, please join me in welcoming speaker number 3, ATM Blake Smith, with Andy Griffith's Why It Was Football. Now that gives you a little story. It's almost like a mini speech, like the opening to his speech. Now you, the audience, you're already involved in the speech. You know where it's going. That's beautiful. This is a backwards meeting, so I guess I was supposed to begin with my clothes, so I'll go there right now. This is a special club. If you know what you have in your hands, you'll agree with me on that. For those of you who may not have prepared an introduction recently, or in the future, if you're thinking about blowing it off, please don't. There have been attempts in the past to lower the standards of this august club.
No.
You will come up with some great resistance. Please, if you're unsure about your introduction, get with one of us. It will make you and your speeches a lot better. Now, in this, doing research for introductions, I went to the resource, Toastmasters International, and I just put introductions in the search bar, figuring I probably should get something useful. And the first thing that was there was the Better Speaker Series project on introductions. So to correct our evaluator, who evaluated it today, this is a project from Maybe he was getting coffee when I talked about that. And there's even an evaluation resource in the back, which I'm supposed to give to him the end of the meeting or the beginning of the meeting? I'm confused. Anyway, if you don't want to talk to somebody, if you're a real introvert, just go online. There's lots of resources on how to set up an introduction. Another word for introductions, I also looked up synonyms for introduction. Just a couple of examples. Preamble. Everybody knows what a preamble is, right? Look it up. Lead-in. It's a lead-in. You're leading us into the story. It's a primer. What do you do? One of those devices like a lawnmower. You got to prime that sucker, right? Get that fuel in that line. You prime your audience. Or a prologue. You can also use your introduction to set up your speeches. So, for example, I've seen Toastmasters who are going to be presenting at a conference or a meeting of some sort, and they want to practice their presentation. Albeit, it's got to be condensed into 7 minutes, but you can set your speech up. So you can actually instruct the audience on who they are while you're giving your talk. For example, if you're giving a speech on sales, who is your audience, or what is your audience? You can instruct them to be CEOs at a conference on cybersecurity if you're a very exciting speaking IT professional.
I'll go on.
Just don't get the elbow brace.
He said
Here's another example of a great introduction. Recently, it's prepared, large font. I would like to introduce our second speaker. As a father of 3 beautiful girls, he has come to realize that God has a tremendous sense of humor. Over the years, he developed a reluctant appreciation of the art of wearing makeup, along with painted toenails. He has learned not to take life too seriously. Today, he'll be speaking about his adopted 3rd child. The title of his speech is Love of My Life. Please welcome Toastmaster Mark Shear.
Okay.
For those of you who bring introductions like this, thank you very much. For those of you yeah. Come on. This is Toastmaster.